Hello everybody, I am Fortnite Creative, and today I am going to be showing you a tutorial on how you can make a mountain within Fortnite Creative. And today I'm going to be doing something a bit special, but first, before I get into that, let me tell you what galleries you're going to need. You're going to need 3. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into galleries, filter by terrain, and you're going to want to pick these 3. Modular rock gallery, temperate, buildable B. You're going to want to get that. You're going to want to get buildable A. You're going to want to get that. And you're going to want to get modular mountain gallery, buildable. So, once you have all of those, place them down. And if you decide you don't like the buildable aspect of these, you can always just turn off building. I think it's better to have it than not to, so I'd always recommend using these pieces. Now, once we have these pieces, we're going to need to get started on our mountain. Now, the reason why this video is special is because I had a mountain just like this one, and I transformed it into this one. Well, I never fully finished it, but I'm going to finish this one. That's the tutorial. And as you can see, this looks way better than the old way of building mountains, or the old way I used to build mountains, and these ones actually function, in which case these ones can also break by hitting them with your pickaxe. Yeah, it wasn't very good. So, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be actually deleting most of this, because you're not going to have this template already ready for whenever you're building your mountain. So I'm just going to leave a few floating pieces behind just to mark out where I want to go. So I'm going to leave this tallest piece up here, or in which case you could just build with walls from the ground up for however tall you want your mountain to go. And I'm also going to leave in the pieces in the corners so I know how wide my mountain's going to be. So I'll leave this piece right here. I'll delete all the other ones around it so I know, okay, I'm not going to want to go past this point. So you don't have to use these pieces, obviously. I'd recommend using any of the pieces from the galleries you just put down. And after I'm done deleting these, we'll get right into the tutorial. Okay, so now that I am done deleting all of the pieces, it is time to get into the tutorial. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab this piece right here. You're not going to want to use the grass piece, because this is going to be a really tall mountain. And whenever you're building really tall mountains, there doesn't tend to be a lot of moss growing on them, or grass, whatever you want to call this. Now, there's a reason why I want you to use this piece in particular. It is because when you resize it to the biggest form, and you place it down, and you're going to want to make sure it goes through any water you have, so it's actually touching the ground and not just floating above the water. When you place this down, you can see it seems like we're pretty much already there. It seems like I could just copy and paste a bunch of these and I could pretty much be done with it. Now, while you could do that, that is a horrible idea to do for multiple reasons. One, because of this effect that you have right here. Even if I filled everything out, you still have a very copy and pasted look. 2, it leaves you a little space to work with. So whenever I was building my mountain with these pieces, I had a lot of space on the inside of my mountain. With these, you're not going to have any space because of how big they are. So there's a few workarounds. So I'm going to get rid of these. And I'm going to take the same piece that I had before, except I'm going to make it smaller by a lot. Just about there. Now it's not covering nearly as much space as it was, and that's a good thing. Then what you're going to want to do after that is you're going to want to take the next piece, and you're going to want to resize it to about the same size. So how big you resize these depends on how big of an area, how big of a mountain you want. So I want a pretty big mountain, so I'm going to resize these to about halfway that they can go. But if you want to, you can make it smaller, or bigger, but just try to keep it around this area, because you don't want to go so big that you get that copy and pasted look. Then we're going to want to take this final piece here, and we're going to want to resize it as well. Now there's a reason why I'm putting them all right next to each other, just like this. It's because these are the main three pieces we want to be combining. So whenever we place the same piece next to each other, like that, it doesn't look good. And this doesn't look good right now either, because I haven't filled anything in, but it will look better. But the thing is this isn't how you want to build. You don't want to build 1, 2, 3, and then repeat that. You're instead gonna want to do something more like this. You're gonna want to rotate the object, and you're gonna want to rotate about like half of it to be inside of it. So you can see how this piece right here has two distinct rocks. There's a short rock here and a tall rock here. If I copy and paste this piece, and I hide in this short rock inside of this piece, that's covering up a distinct piece, a distinct part of this piece. So whenever I'm seeing this piece again, I'm not going to associate it with this part of the mountain, because I can't see this piece to recognize it. I'm going to think this is completely new, because whenever I'm looking at this whole big mountain, I'm not going to be looking I'm going to be looking for little details like these, but I'm not going to notice them if they're covered up. So you can also take this same piece over here, you could rotate it a bit to its other side, and you could cover the front right here. And then you could cover a little bit of this distinct piece too. So then, once you've done that, and you're looking at it from a distance, maybe you combine it a bit, so it it's like the rocks are kind of fused together. Like that right there. Then you're not going to be able to tell that this piece is the same whenever you see it later on. And that's a big part of it. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take this piece here, and this piece, here's something you can do with all the pieces, but this piece in particular I like to use this trick with. So what you're going to want to do is you're only going to want to reset its depth. And whenever you're resetting the depth of this piece, you can make it really thin, but you can also make it really big. So that way, this fixes a problem we had before. Whenever we were resizing this piece and we had way too little space inside of the mountain, but with this piece it gets rid of all of our problems. We have a lot more space than before. But you're probably thinking, then the copy and paste problem comes up again. Well, it does. So the way we fix that after placing it, let's place it a different way. Let's place it more towards our next marker. Okay, there we go. So the way we fix the copy and pasted look here is, let's take, you know what? Let's take the exact same piece, just for argument's sake. And let's resize it a bit. And, okay. So now we have the exact same piece. So so there's a special way to cover up a piece with the exact same piece. And the main trick to this is specifically to rotate it. So already right there it looks fine, but you can tell it's the same piece. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to rotate this piece to be like, you don't want to rotate it all the way upside down then resize it a bunch, because if you do that you'll get a very weird effect. If you are going to resize your pieces, I recommend resizing them just by one axis, not to make them bigger or smaller, or to make it just to make a new shape. So if I'm trying to make a new shape out of this same piece, I'm gonna only want to resize by the depth. because if I start resizing the other axes, like the height or the width, then everything just starts to get really messy. Okay, so I finally placed down my piece. They don't look like the same piece. You can't tell that this piece is the same piece resized, rotated on its side. Usually you can make these types of pieces bigger to cover more area. Then you can work with another piece, like this one. Whenever you're working with a mountain, there's a lot of jagged edges with the rocks, so it doesn't have to fuse evenly. It just has to like relatively look like it works. Okay, so now we have the pieces looking like this. Even though you can tell it's the same piece, it still looks like one, just because of the simple fact that I rotated it. And if I go to place this piece, or the same piece but rotated the other way, on the other side of the mountain, you're probably not going to notice. And sometimes you just do have to take those kinds of chances, because I can resize this piece, and I can resize it to be like this, and you can clearly tell that it's the same piece as this one, for example. But just because it's the same piece doesn't mean it doesn't work. Like if I place down this piece, it still technically works. So you technically can do that, but the overall goal is to add more detail to your map. In this case, it did actually work out quite well, but in most cases it won't. With most other pieces that you're working with, resizing them and putting them next to the same exact piece, it won't work well. For distinct shapes like this, and even though that was a distinct shape, because it's in the distinct shape of a mountain, like you can just basically take this piece already, resize it, paste it, and you already have yourself a mountain pretty much. But just because that's how those shapes are formed in the first place, that's the only reason you're gonna get that sort of effect. I want my mountain to peak around here, around at this area. So I'm gonna take a piece that I think would be good for the peak, which is going to be this one, the one from the beginning, just because of how big it is. And then I'm gonna place it right here. So now, at the top of my mountain, now I can more easily see where I'm going. I might have to move this entire piece just because it's going in the wrong direction. I want my mountain to top out like right here, and sometimes you need to rotate pieces that you've built or like put a lot of time into. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to delete them, but it means you kind of have to just reorganize it a little bit. And now I'm not really liking how this piece looks, so maybe I'll put it somewhere else. And if it really just doesn't fit at all anywhere, then maybe I'll just get rid of it. So first I'm gonna see if I can put it anywhere else. So I'm gonna see if I can put it right here. Maybe make it a bit smaller, put it right there. See if that works. Do I like how it looks? It's okay. Since I'm planning to put some more land over here later, it's probably gonna work out fine. But if I was working with just it touching the water over here, then I'd probably delete it. So whenever we take a bunch of these shapes like this, that aren't really big, but they're not like really small either, we can copy them, and then we can rotate them to be the other way around, and then we can paste them. Paste them right about here. See how sharp this piece is right here at the top? That means if I want to connect it to this piece, I'm gonna have to do one of two things. I'm either gonna have to bring this down so I can connect it to the bottom, or I'm gonna have to bring this piece up. And I'm gonna choose to bring it up because I want this to be the tallest mountain in my map. The way you're gonna get away with copying and pasting the same pieces over and over again, the way you're gonna get away with that the most is by building mountains, because some mountains do have kind of the same look. Like some mountains kind of look like those three pieces, and those blend together. And whenever you make something like that, you can kind of, it's very easily forgivable to make something like this. So now I'm going to take this piece that I resized before, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to size reset, and then I'm going to put it down, just so I can select it easier, and then I'm going to make it really big. Not too big, but big enough. And then I'm going to cover this whole other area over here. So now, this will all flow together a lot more smoothly. So the main key to what I'm doing here is I'm taking a bunch of pieces, resizing them to be big but not too big, and I'm putting them around the circumference of the mountain. And then I'm taking those same pieces and I'm making them smaller in certain areas, like right here, and I'm pasting them and I'm putting them down, so that way I can have more detail around my base. Because whenever you're walking around a mountain, and this is not one I intend you to climb, just because you technically can, I don't intend you to climb, so I'm going to pay more attention to the areas over here, where you're actually going to see the mountain and where you might run into it. So that's the main reason why I like to put more details around the bottom of the mountain. Sometimes working with this is hard, and sometimes these pieces are just too big. So we can have a part of the mountain that's kind of like breaking off a bit, or that or that connects and it's technically a part of a mountain, but you wouldn't be able to see it because it's underwater. So if I place a piece just over here like this, separate from the mountain, and I take this piece, and I'll place it right here, touching the bottom of the surface, and I copy and paste these pieces, but in a very specific way, where I rotate them to kind of give off the effect that like it's fallen off the mountain here. And it's way easier to get away with something like this. I'd like to have some pieces that are bigger, and they'll stick out more from here, and maybe they're more tilted towards this smaller island piece I have going on. And maybe I'll just have some of these pieces peeking out of the ground. And they'll be more consistent the closer you get to the mountain, and the less consistent the closer you get to this other piece here. So if you're working with water, then I definitely recommend you use this, or at least give it a try. And then you kind of have this effect right here. Definitely rotate some of the pieces more. I'm having a bit of trouble because of the base of the piece sticking through the bottom of the map. So then sometimes you'll have to come in and you'll get another piece like this one, and you'll make it really, really small, just so you can fix the bottom here. Even though it's not something you see a lot in Fortnite Creative, I'm still going to stress that you do this, because it's not something a lot of people do, or a lot of people pay attention to. So whenever you're playing your map and you're trying to get involved in it, and you're swimming, or you're at least in a situation where you can see under the water, and you'll just see this piece floating like that, it kind of takes you out of it. Especially whenever you play a lot of Fortnite Creative and you're very familiar with the system. Now I'm going to finish on closing up the cap right here. This is a part where it becomes a lot easier to do, because what you can do is you can take some of the pieces you used the least throughout this whole thing, and then I can resize it, and I can resize it to be really big. And I'm actually going to want to make it a bit smaller, because what I can do is, because of the top shape of this piece, I can easily blend it into other copies of this same piece. You couldn't tell that all of these were the same piece. Now I'm just going to work on filling in the rest of the mountain. There are definitely circumstances where you want to copy and paste a lot. Like right here, what I'm doing with this piece but I didn't recommend doing it for these tall pieces right here, just because this is the main face of the mountain that we've used multiple times. I definitely don't want to overdo it, because that's something you can easily do as well. Overall, you are going to want to copy and paste the same piece a lot. It's just very, very easy to copy and paste the same piece too much. If you're wondering, by the way, why I have these pieces here, it's because in my old mountain, I had a cave system. That's why I also stressed it to be important that you leave the inside of this mountain hollow. Okay, I'd like to bring up another point very quickly. You can see this piece here, I just copy and pasted the same piece over to here. And this is the piece we were using earlier that I resized. So what you'll notice about this side of the mountain is very clean, it's very smooth, it's a big drop off here. Meanwhile, on the other sides of this mountain, you can see that it's very rocky. And just because I'm not done in a few sections still doesn't mean the overall thing won't be rocky. It's very rocky here, it's very rocky at the bottom. You're going to want to have multiple different looks on your mountain. You can go with the same look on one mountain. You can have it all smooth, or you can have it all rocky like this. But those are usually used for backgrounds of maps. One other trick I've found to be useful when building my mountain is if I have a piece that's too far out like this one, I can copy and paste one of my other pieces, rotate it to be upside down, and place it underneath. And I'll usually resize it to be a little bit smaller so that way it fits. So then it looks like all this is supporting this over here, and it blends in for a really nice effect. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up to the top, and you're going to want to see what piece you've used, or what pieces you've used. And after you've identified that, so I know I've used this piece, so I'm going to get this piece of snow, I'm going to resize it to be about the same size that this piece is. Definitely going to want to take your time with this part right here. And you're just going to want to make sure you do that. Make sure one sticks out, the old one sticks out, so that way you can take it out, you can delete it. And now I have snow at the top of my mountain, and if I want to, I can take out this piece and replace it for the snow piece, so you can kind of have a dripping effect with snow all the way down. I'm going to use this piece as an example, and I'm going to go around my mountain, and I'm going to fly really close to it, and I'm going to find a hole. So I remember a little hole I found earlier, right here. That leads right into the inside of my mountain. Even if I can't get to it, doesn't matter. Still, I'm going to rotate it first before I resize it. I'm going to see about what angle I want it at, and then I'm going to resize it to be big, just to add extra detail. Now, you have a new shape here, still fits in with all these other rocky shapes. Whenever you're working with these big mountain pieces, you get a lot of texture glitches. I'll show you one of those right now, actually. One of those texture glitches. I resized everything differently, and I rotated everything differently. If I reset the size, and if I reset its rotation axis, you can see it's actually this piece. Same piece we've been working with the whole time, but with grass on it. And even though you can't tell that it was the same piece, it doesn't look good. It looked so bad that I had to make it its own little island out in the middle of nowhere where I know nobody would go. So there's like little to no circumstances you can use a piece like this. Here's something you're going to want to keep an eye out for too. This is an area where somebody could get stuck. If they don't have the right items, they could easily get stuck here. Especially if you're making a no-build map, or whatever type of map you're making, easy to get stuck. So there's obviously going to be, you're not going to be able to fix every single spot, on your mountain where somebody could get stuck, but you're going to want to fix most of them as possible. And it's pretty easy to identify the big problems you might have. So you can just take a piece, this one's big and flat, and you can place it here, and boom. I was using these old terrain pieces. I'm just going to use this new one. Get rid of this, have that like that, and then I'm going to rotate this, resize it a little bit. I'm going to place it under it, and then I'm going to place it actually a little bit closer. So now this piece seems more consistent instead of just poking out of nowhere, since there's two pieces of these. If you want to make an opening in your mountain like I have, use all the smaller pieces. I don't recommend using any big pieces at all, because whenever you're working with the smaller pieces, you're not going to change the shape a whole lot. It'll be way easier to work with, and that's important. The very last thing I recommend to you is, after you're done your mountain, hang around the area. Get a grappler gun, you grapple off the mountain a bit, and if you do that, then you have more of a chance that you're gonna find more holes in your mountain, and you can fix them up. That would be the very last thing I recommend to you whenever you're making a mountain. With that being said, I'm going to end off the video. I hope I see you in another video. Thank you very much for watching.